Hello, folks. Smoking Joe here for the Cracker Culture Podcast. We are doing a series with a guy that calls himself Gunderson. Um, this series is a little different than anything else I've done because the story just keeps evolving. It starts off from him being poisoned due to PBB poisoning, and this happened in about 1973. Farm Bureau Services and other companies had mixed in a fire retardant called Firemaster instead of Nutramaster into the feed, and this supplement added to the feed caused nearly everyone in Michigan to be infected. It's a really rough story, and I guess I don't know what the after effects down the road could be. Now, I try to go into the story about the PBB poisoning a little bit, but then this envelops into this gentleman's core beliefs, where he believes in a lot of things that people called conspiracies, things like that. I've researched and tried to vet most of his comments. The first part, we're going to go over the PBB poisoning. We're going to take a trip into Ukraine and talk about his experiences there as well as mine. But then we go a little deeper and we talk about some things that I guess we leave it to the viewer to decide. Me personally, I'm a pretty common sense guy. I say that I don't really believe in fairy tales. However, we live in a country where you have a right to believe whatever you want to, and you have a right to say whatever you want to. That's what America's about. So I hope that you'll enjoy this show. And like I said, this is going to be more than one episode. So the first episode starts here. Like I said, you might think this guy's crazy. Florida gets a bad rap about having crazy people, but remember, most of our crazy people come from somewhere else. Enjoy the show. Hi folks, Smoking Joe here with the Cracker Culture Podcast. Today I have a special guest with me. We're going to call him Gunderson. He come to me about doing the podcast, and I know I do a lot of funny stuff and stuff to be comical and crazy, but we all have different beliefs, and something that you might find far-fetched, somebody else might see us in the realm of their reality. And we're going to try to start off and introduce Gunderson with you, and then we're going to evolve into some of the things that he feels like he's been going through, and just see exactly his take on this and be your own judge. Now, Smoking Joe Nation's got to put out this. I have just come in acquaintance recently over the past few weeks and met Gunderson, and he has explained to me a lot of stuff and a lot of the things that he deals with, and we're going to try to start from where he began to where he got to the beliefs he has now. Now, Mr. Gunderson is a Florida transplant. He's been here in Florida about 23 years. He originally hails from Michigan, and he grew up on a farm, and in Michigan his family were farmers, and you know, it's a different lifestyle than what I grew up here in Florida. But that being said, Mr. Gunderson, say you grew up in Michigan, and I know. You go ahead and you want to tell a little bit about your childhood growing up in Michigan. You grew up on a farm.
Yeah, Dad farmed beans and wheat, and corn. And, he had trucks and tractors, and about 5 acres of equipment. No livestock though.
Pretty well a common heartland style existence. I mean, that's
yeah. You gotta
and
do a lot, but
now,
you're not married to a herd of cows.
Right. Gotcha. Now, in talking to you, you've told me a little bit about your story and when you grew up. Now, you were succumbed to an illness that was something to do with the with the corporate misuse of chemicals, would you like to elaborate a little bit on that experience that you can remember?
Yeah, kindergarten.
Kindergarten,
Yeah,
okay.
you're well, even before that, just little kids. 1973, they poisoned, and I'll say it was intentional.
Now you're talking
about 1 million people in Michigan.
Now, are you talking about the Velasco company? Is that the company that shipped the fire retardant into the cattle farmers? Is this what you're referring?
Yeah, I think that's bullshit. I went to a feed store in St. Louis, Michigan, or went to a distribution place, really.
Mm-hmm.
In a nutshell, Farm Bureau Services was taken out.
You're talking about
the central banks
company.
came in and started regulating all the banking.
But when you say Farm Bureau, you're
because
talking about the
this.
Insurance company, Farm Bureau Insurance. Is that who you're talking
Well,
about?
it was Farm Bureau Bank.
Farm Bureau Bank. Okay.
Yeah. They gave interest. They gave loans to the farmers, and even Hollywood made a movie about it. It was called Bitter Harvest with Ron Howard. It was right after his Happy Days.
So you were subjected to the PBB poisoning.
We got sick. Yeah, a whole bunch of us. A million kids got sick, and I was one of them. Yeah.
Anybody that's not familiar with PBB poisoning, this is something that come to light in 1973 from my best recollection, and it's polybromide biphenyl.
It's a heavy molecule. It's a metal, and the reason they could eat it was it didn't have a stenching agent in it.
Okay.
And that's the first thing that's suspect right there. It's not.
But it contaminated beef, chicken, pork, milk, eggs. It contaminated about every substance y'all had in Michigan.
It went through the food chain, and we feed the animal back to make chicken feed, right?
Right.
Make concentrate, and so the meat would get fed to the chickens, and the chickens would have it, and then the eggs had it, and the milk had it. I have a friend, Marvin. His sister Karen was speech impediment. She had some problems. I don't think she has health problems, but they were drinking milk right up out of the tank.
Right.
And it would separate in the refrigerator.
Well, that's really, everything that happened in Michigan in those times was very sad. I know it affected a lot of people, and this affected you and your family personally. And I guess growing up with that illness, what were some of the day-to-day struggles you had from the PBB poisoning?
Eventually, you grew out of it.
Okay.
The sickness, at least I did. But mystery illnesses, and you cramp up in the wintertime. That's what I did. I would just cramp up. I couldn't even walk. So when it got cold weather, get down to 50 degrees, you got a kid that's crawling around on his elbows and his knees, and I couldn't go to school. For those first few years. Eventually, I don't know if you sweat it out or it's always in there. You grow big enough to where it's not bothering you. At least it's not bothering me now.
Well, that being said, there's a lot of things have reoccurring effects that we don't know for sure how it may, for the long term, affect us. This PBB poison, you very well could have grown out of the PBB poisoning, or it could have effects, because I know there's a lot of carcinogens in that. A lot of people that had illnesses, cancer related, from those items. Who's to really say what after effects, even down the road, this PBB poisoning could have on you or others like you? You see where I'm at?
Oh, there's all kinds of thyroid cancer. Most of it went north, and we lived to the west. Okay. And Montcalm County, basically the center of Michigan. If you bring up Michigan, the geological thing, it looks like an eyeball.
Right.
It's basically this.
Right.
If you look up Michigan geological formation, That's what I think this is. Everybody does this.
Right. Yeah.
To me, if you look at it, it's
Well,
a lot of strange things have to do with Michigan right now. They got them locked down pretty tight.
Yeah. Well, I've said all along, you get up around Dearborn and the Muslim contingent in Dearborn, something that unheard of in my times in the United States. But and you know, I've had a lot of people that's worked for me that was from Michigan.
Dad's hunting buddy Gary was one of the lawyers that brought down Farm Bureau Services.
Okay, and you know your interaction with Gary. I mean that's from a young boy. Did he relate to you his knowledge of what was going on with the PBB poisoning? I mean,
no, he was just Dad's hunting buddy.
Right.
He was a funny guy. And he is a funny guy. He's still living.
Okay.
But there's more to that than the whole fact that you know, the other one was Tom Heinze, who was a bank president.
Okay.
He was there in Lakeview too.
Now.
And Dad would, you know, they were over at our house all the time, and Tom and his wife.
Okay. Now, what with Tom Heinze and in this Gary P. Shank and their family friends, but what interaction they have you that related you back into the root cause of this PBB fiasco? Some memories that you have that you find now that you're older that you might seem from an older version of Gunderson, you might find a little maybe suspect compared to what a younger person might see.
Banks being taken down, people being made president of the banks, and mayor that graduated at the bottom of their class, yet they had several businesses and always money. Wife never worked.
So you got a lot of underachievers that seem to prosper in this area.
Yeah, it seems like that always made me wonder, and just things like that.
Well, you're 23 years plus absent of that situation now, and you know, living in Florida, and does you have any type of anything that affects you? You feel like it's from the PBB poisoning that affects you currently? Is there anything that you feel like currently?
Nothing out of the normal.
Nothing out of the normal.
Once in a while you get eczema. You know, I just found out that ivermectin may help that.
Right. Well, yeah. You never know what helps anymore with things.
Right.
They try.
They don't want to tell you nothing.
You can't trust what anybody says anymore. Well, now, you talked to me about several things, and I don't want to jump around, but let's start out. And our first interaction as Gunderson was going to make his second trip to Ukraine. And you'd told me before that you had previously been to Ukraine in 2005.
I'm a commercial elevator guy in Florida.
Okay.
And, well, that time I was never done anything. Grew up on a farm, never went anywhere.
Right.
I basically came to Florida and fucking went right back to work.
Right.
So I took a vacation. I went to a couple different places, but one of them was Ukraine. And I traveled out to a city to meet a girl.
Well,
most
Americans go to Ukraine because of women, and that being said, there's some of the most beautiful women over there. And
it's the hard butt capital of the fucking world.
Yeah, there's
right?
like I said, I've got a lot of friends. I too spent a lot of time in Ukraine. I stayed over in the Kharkov region, and I know some of the places I traveled to. You've relayed to me. You went to Sumy.
Nobody watches TV.
Nobody watches
fucking
TV.
Watch TV.
The one thing that I have to say about you being over in Ukraine or Europe or anything, the people are not so different than the people in America. It's our governments. Our governments is what separates us. Our government is what is the key issue, and they don't trust their governments, rightly so. Now here in the un-United States of America, I don't feel like we can trust our government either. So I mean, we're basically not that far. There's not a vast amount of difference between the citizens of Ukraine versus the citizens of the United States. Just different, and the difference is the way you were brought up, the things you eat. There's still good-hearted people. They still willing to help out people. I mean, I've never felt like I couldn't go somewhere in Ukraine.
A lot of chestnut trees.
Yeah, a lot of chestnut
The
trees.
fucking chestnut trees are everywhere.
Yeah.
Things that got to be dropping right about now.
But now on your first trip to Ukraine, and like I said, you admittedly went over there, and it was all about the beautiful women, but you stumbled across something.
I went to meet somebody, and it turned out to be some kind of trafficking thing, and I just fucking went off and did my own shit. I'm like, fuck this. So I just got a place and just kind of hung out. And one of the things I did is I walked through churches.
Okay. Now,
Because they let you. There's nothing else there.
Right. Well, and look, if you know a lot about religion in Ukraine, they pretty much just got rid of religion in Ukraine during Stalin, because if you was going to pray to anything, you prayed to Stalin.
Mostly Russian Orthodox. I was in a town that
Russian.
had several churches in it. They were all Russian Orthodox. And I didn't walk through all of them. Just in this one little area I walked around with. But I followed the road up one day to some railroad tracks, and you don't have maps.
Right.
The second time I went, I had Google Maps, and it worked whether you got signal or anything. It just worked. Thank goodness. And of course, I can't read Cyrillic.
Right.
So you have to make friends. So it's very easy to make friends with people that don't watch fucking TV.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the truth. Just, I don't know, people around here are...
Well,
spaced out.
Well, their TV, it really is controlled by the government.
Definitely.
And I know one of the funniest things I remember in Ukraine is a group of college students trying to emulate the Beavis and Butthead show, but in Ukrainian. And I mean, to me, it was hilarious. It was funnier to me than the actual American version, watching these guys with their shirts pulled over their head and saying
The first time
words.
I went, and it's not because I timed it this way or planned it this way, it was the 60th anniversary of the end of World War II.
Okay.
So they had a big celebration in Kiev. So I spent a couple days in Kiev, and the streets are tore up. There's fucking 20-foot holes in the middle of the street, so you had to walk down one side of a pile of dirt all the way down the street. And they're still that way. Kiev's a mess.
Right.
You drive through from the bus station to Boryspil Airport, and that's through a rough part of town. The buildings are close together, and it's a bizarre looking city. You're not used to seeing that type of architecture.
I was always fascinated with the subway
pack
system.
as many people in as you can.
Well, the subway system to me over in Ukraine was like that was the most advanced thing they had, was underground. The best looking, the cleanest, everything I seen was underground. So.
Everything I seen was old. Everything's
It was
clean.
old.
They don't have like fucking chicken bones laying everywhere. Like people throw chicken
Let me
bones
tell you
and dump
something
garbage
that-
here. Everything's picked up. It's a European city. It's clean. It might be 110 years old, but it's clean up.
Well, we went to a park when I was over in Ukraine, and it was something that they had put in during World War II at this park, and nothing had been upgraded. The roller coaster was the same. I mean, and they said, unlike Americans, this is the exact words one of the a boy named Vinny said to me. He said, unlike Americans, just because something's 40 or 50 years old, we don't think it's no good. We still use it. And it was very common in anything you done, they still used it. They didn't let nothing go to waste. And same with animals. I mean, you go into a restaurant and you order food, they use everything in an animal over in Ukraine. So, so it's they're not a wasteful group of people by no means. But again, like I said, I really was, me personally, I was amazed at the commonality amongst me and the people that were the natives of Ukraine. But and you went over there. Did you just? I mean, what was it that made you choose to go into churches? I know the architecture over there is beautiful.
Nothing there.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody kind of walked down the street looking at the ground. They put on their best clothes. They didn't have Nikes then.
Now, where was you at in Ukraine? What town was this?
I'm going to keep the town secret.
Okay, no problem. I understand. I respect
It's
that.
by the Russian border. Is in eastern Ukraine.
Eastern Ukraine. Okay.
And all the children under 10 when I was there could speak English.
Right.
So that's one thing I discovered. All these kids could talk. You couldn't talk to any adults, just 10-year-old kids, which was kind of cool,
weird.
Actually. Yeah. But I did get introduced to a teacher that spoke English, and she showed me around. You can see where the Soviet Union dissolved, because there's a part of town that was just empty cement structures.
Right.
So everything just stopped, and it had been stopped for 10, whatever, how many years since the wall fell on Germany.
Well, so, I know that I was able to go into what now would look like a indoor flea market to some, but over there, but that had been...
That's their main mall.
But that had been like the kitchens back in the day where they got their allotment of bread, they got whatever commodities they were allowed, they went to these big places and got them. Now, I come in right at during the Orange Revolution when I went over there the first time.
What year was it?
I can't tell you.
Because right after, like a year or 2 years after I was there, they had the same square I was standing. There was like kids with flannel shirts like Kurt Cobain would wear, and they were breakdancing.
Right. Oh no, it's definitely.
They were totally grunge breakdancers.
They are very. That's one thing I'll say. Most of the people over there, they're very enticed by what happens in the western part of the world. I mean, they like music.
They were just like. Went into a bar and there was a computer and he was playing everything we listened to here, and they had Corona and they had...
Oh, there's beer on every corner, but hell, it's
only
piss
one
warm.
flavor of vodka though.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, well, I was very lucky when I was over there. I guess I had several
That was 16
friends.
years ago. Now they got everything that we got.
Right.
Even a fucking big Illuminati eyeball in the triangle right on their 500.
Right. Well, and that's where we're going to now. Gunderson's got some beliefs, and this is where we come in when he asked me to do the podcast, and he has researched symbols, he's researched a lot of these things, and this is what I guess enticed him to make his second trip to Ukraine, which he just done a few weeks ago. Is that correct? Your first trip, the symbols and stuff you researched?
Well, you learn to read prints. I'm like I said, I'm a commercial elevator guy, and you're looking at building prints or electrical prints.
Right.
And they're symbols. Sometimes they're Chinese, sometimes they're German, sometimes they're American. Different manufacturers put different symbols on it because of the place wherever they're built.
Correct.
You kind of decipher it, so you learn to look at that stuff. And once your brain's trained to look at it, you can't unlook at stuff that way.
Right.
Like counting numbers. I guess once you start doing it, then you're always doing it.
Well, now,
So,
do you feel like you got an OCD?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
Because I noticed you relayed a lot of stuff for me into numbers, and certain symbols.
And I never was that way before until, like we said, Trump became president.
Okay. Now, this is where the line was what Gunderson thinks, and a lot of people is going to have issue. Gunderson feels like that after Trump come into office, he was enlightened with more knowledge to certain things. Is that saying it correctly?
Yeah, there was stuff going on that was just enlightening, and we don't want to get barred here, but everybody kind of knows what it was. And through this new content, because I live in a little school bus when I travel.
Right.
And I go over to Miami on the week, and I would drive back to Fort Myers on the weekend.
Right.
Take the dogs with me. Didn't have to stay in a hotel. Didn't have to give the dogs up. It's a school bus. He went on a low. Everything was fine.
I
I
don't
get
know.
my entertainment from this.
Correct.
And I'm watching YouTube. And I had Hulu. I was watching the X-Files. And after you watch the X-Files 20 times, you let your Hulu subscription run out.
Yeah.
But this new thing was happening on the internet.
And I'm just going to be honest, folks. Whether you believe it or don't believe it, me currently, I've said all along that this is something I have not researched. I looked at it in the beginning, and to me personally, it so became cult-like that I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole. But I think that you started watching a lot of the QAnon.
I started following new content providers because of that. And then we all kind of went, it's a riddle. Everything was a riddle. And riddles are fun. And that's what the attraction was, because it was a riddle. It's a mystery. There was jokes, and it seemed like he was talking to certain people, and I know he was.
Okay. So now, when you going to this QAnon, watching this, the different platforms that promote, and again, I go back. The first thing I saw on QAnon, the first thing to my mind come Jim Jones, Charles Manson. Here's a guy claiming he's almost like a prophet, like Brigham Young or something. I mean, I found it to be a little hard to digest for me in a common perspective. However, I'm not one to not question things. And that's why when I listen to some of the things you say, I'm like, and I told Gunderson before he come on here, most people are going to think you're looniers and,
Because I mentioned that.
Because you mentioned certain things of that, yes. And we'll go, I mean, and there's a lot.
Because of this Q, I started watching different content providers. Some of it was really interesting. I've always been interested in history.
Right.
So, and you go through 10 different people. I mean, for the longest time, I listened to Bill Smith. And then it was Bill Smith News, because they would tell stuff, and all of a sudden their channel was banned. And they were the first guys getting banned for this shit. And it was weird why this got banned and other stuff didn't. Raunchy stuff.
Right.
Terrible stuff. People beating each other up. I just watched a bunch of videos on YouTube of just fist fights.
Right.
Right? But that doesn't get banned, but,
And
some of that fun stuff got banned right away.
But the thing about that stuff like that, when you look at, and it's a sad thing, but human beings are creatures of animosity, and that's why stuff like the violence, that people watch it, and the people that promote it, they're going to keep putting it out there because they know somebody's going to watch it.
Yeah. This was different, though. There was a lot of effort put into this. There was a mega meme file, is what I found out after watching Linda Paris. It was Deplorable McAllister. Linda Paris's channel led to other ones. There was Deception Bites. I watched her, Canadian lady.
Right.
And so it was a different perspective. Now, she was a Christian too, so in faith. Paris was religious, but not as church goer. And which I am not either, even though we went to church schools probably. She probably did too.
Right. So you grew up in religious educational programs.
Oh yeah. We were. My babysitters were World War I veterans, and they were the ones that they feed you coffee. They were English, so they give you tea and coffee and watch you flip out, let you run around outside. All hopped up on coffee. And those were the days that's when I was a sick kid.
Right. Now, when you started watching this entertainment and you started, basically, you're conditioning your mind with what you're watching. Now, this being said, I want people to understand, I don't watch TV. That's something that I personally don't do. I do watch excerpts on, I'm more of I watch streamers. I think streamers, because it's live and in the moment, and there's no room for a lie. That's why that's usually, if I want to watch anything that's on television, I'd rather watch a live feed so that I seen it firsthand for myself rather than something that somebody went back and edited and gave me their version of what they want me to think I seen.
Well, to get back to what I was watching, but I was interested in Linda Paris' stuff because it was about this cult, this satanic cult that hurts children. You know, eventually you give up. You can't figure out what's going on. So I left it for a long time. So it was 2012, and then all of a sudden it's 2017, and this QAnon thing starts up.
Right.
And I'm watching these videos of Linda Paris, and she's talking about this cult and how the images are in the roads of Washington, D.C., and how all this symbolism is around us. And she got a little deeper into the belief of this cult that supposedly QAnon was talking about, because these were some of the riddles, and everybody that put content out was trying to figure out what these riddles meant. Okay. And so she was interpreting this stuff as best she could. As to, there was some content providers that were watching each other, and they would talk probably on the phone. Who knows? But there was a way they were steering you with it.
Well,
but through this imagery, it all of a sudden hit me like a ton of bricks. It was all led to this child trafficking thing. And that displaced children in wars, you know, the kids end up disappearing. And these companies that are involved. And that's why they didn't like it. And that's why I got kicked off the internet, because they would basically finger the Red Cross for trafficking kids.
Right. But now we can't discuss Q and not break down whether you are a believer or non-believer in Q or QAnon, because I've always been told Q and Anon are not the same.
Yeah. I'm going to say Q is just like the fucking TV show on Star Trek. There's a guy that does the main posting, and then all these other people are Q.
Well, who do you think the
just
guy
like Star Trek? I think there's a Q clearance, and I think that
so
all these
you
people
think,
with...
okay, let me start there. You think Q is a military clearance?
No, it's a civilian clearance.
It's a civilian clearance. Yeah. And who is giving this clearance? In your opinion?
I don't know, but I think a whole lot of people have it, and that you don't know about, like rock stars and actors, and I think they have Q clearance, and I think that...
Well, what are they cleared for then? If they've got some type of clearance, is it whether it's
top secret information, maybe some tech,
but not military.
They're not. It's a civilian clearance code. For a military guy, it could have the same clearance. It just wouldn't be called a Q clearance.
Okay.
It's for a regular person. They would call this security clearance a Q clearance. Whatever the military calls it, they have their own type of clearance.
So how do you get a Q clearance? Is it something I can apply for?
You gotta want to be famous, and probably, you gotta probably have a pretty sharp mind.
Right.
And I would have to say somebody who can, somebody like. Gosh.
Well, I mean, you've got your ideas of who has this Q clearance.
I think it's guys like Elton John that are hyper intelligent.
Okay.
I think he's probably has a clearance from wherever he is at. But I think guys, like the band Metallica.
But now Elton
James
John,
Hetfield's got a Q clearance.
You talk about Elton John, and you can also break down. He was knighted by the Queen. I mean,
right? Those guys are on the inside. They know,
it's hard to Elton John. It's hard to know what somebody like that is, because, and I can see where someone could derive at people who have reached stardom and fame get special privileges. I mean, we all know that Elvis Presley was inducted into the FBI by Richard Nixon, and that was not because his ability to...
we were always told that, that was the guy from The Doors who had CIA, and then there was...
And he was very suspect. His body was found suicide, and they even moved the body when
Jim Morrison.
Jim Morrison, they even moved the body because the bar owner didn't want to look like it was bad for him that he had some OD. It was a very suspect murder. Jim Morrison was
Frank
very suspect.
Zappa.
Yeah, Frank Zappa was another one.
Yeah, so their dads are CIA. So they had Q clearance. Frank Zappa, I would have to say, had a Q clearance. I would have to say Morrison had a Q clearance. I'm going to have to say Marilyn Monroe had a Q clearance. People like that.
And all those people were very close to people in power that ran countries or leaderships in government.
It's still going on. I think Steve Martin has a Q clearance.
But who's he connected to? I'm trying to gather some of these people I can come down to the line and see that.
Well, they all have this symbolism. There's this, like if you go back to Steve Martin's first album, Comedy Is Not Pretty, and he's wearing a wig and lipstick. And
right.
That's kind of what the transgender push is, which is not because a man loves a woman so much that he becomes one.
Right.
There's a different type of people that do it that's for different reasons. You know what I mean?
I've always said it's all for attention. Me personally, I think all this is for attention.
You know what you are when you're 3 years old.
If you choose to be that way and you're that way and it means so much of you that you've got to try to push everybody to accept that way, then it's an attention thing because most people just ain't going to give a shit. I don't care.
And you got people that go to work like a man and then go home and then put in woman's clothing and go out as a woman. Those are drag queens. Yeah. They're different too.
Well, again, I mean, but getting back to the people that's got Q clearance and again, here's really, like you said, there's symbolisms, there's you feel like there's messages and stuff. Well, we've known that governments has used propaganda and they've used the media.
It was info drops, and I think they were dropping to operatives in the field. I think it was a military thing, but remember, the civilians are in charge. So there was Q.
Right.
All right, but I think there was a military operation with a civilian in charge, and the plan had been planned for 30 years or more. I would have to say.
And here's the
problem.
problem.
50 years ago.
If you follow, and I have not followed none of this Q stuff, but I have seen, oh, it's happening, wait till so-and-so, oh, they're going to do this, so-and-so, Q has spoken. And then the shit just don't come to light. That throws a problem.
They're doing things to distract you from it.
But
all the things they talked about, all that MKULTRA stuff.
I believe that.
You see all that, they put it in the videos, there's broken glass. She's telling you right there. Like I said, this is the devil horns.
Right.
Yet my back is against the wall. You won't see me standing in the middle room. They're always, you look at the stars and when they're doing this weird shit, there's always a hidden meaning there. Like a statement by Cyndi Lauper that doesn't even sound like she wrote it. But there she is, the image, with her standing with her back against the wall.
So now let me see if I can break down what you're saying. When they throw the devil horns with their back against the wall, are they saying they're trapped? They got no choice? Is that what you're trying to say?
Somebody's making them do it. Yeah.
Somebody's forcing them to put out this message.
Yeah.
And the people that me and you discussed in the preliminary interview are people I know personally. Then this is what bothers me a little bit about it because I understand what your feeling is, but knowing these people personally, I'm trying to look at that person in that light, and it's hard to come around to that. You understand what I mean?
Well, the person that you know is a good guy.
Okay. No, yeah. But I know quite a few others that you've talked about, but I mean, that particular person...
They're all trying to tell you. I mean, we're going, wow, look what she just did. She just made the devil horns, and then it's like, when people react to it, they do it 10 times worse. It's like, hey, I got your attention. It's like putting blood in your shoes.
Right.
And then putting out a bunch more stuff when everybody's going, whoa, why is he doing that?
Well,
it's like, because I'm trying to get your fucking attention.
Well, and here,
to me, it looks like a cry for help. And it is.
But I'm a grown ass man, and some of the people you've talked about, I'm know me. Me personally, and I can't think that some other common sense thinking red-blooded Americans just say, wait a minute, bullshit, you ain't going to extort me. You're not going to force me to do something I don't believe in. Or are you trying to tell me you think that these programs are brainwashing them people, they don't know what they believe?
You can go and they'll show you on some of the videos, some of the channels I've had. You would go in and even Fox News was doing it, where they would talking points, repeat the same talking points over and over and over and over again.
Let's take a break right here and get. Thanks for watching the Cracker Culture Podcast. I love you, Florida. You keep America great. If you love peace and gator grease, Smoking Joe for the Smoking Joe Nation.